It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Get rid of the echo there. All right, folks. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000 for the next hour. And, of course, you can always text us on our text line. That is up and running. 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Text it like you would anybody else. It appears on a screen here in studio in real time. We'll try to work it into the conversation. Today, behind the glass, back at HQ, flying the board today. So he is at headquarters. I am at the Cameo Studios, which means the Cameo Cam is on, which you can watch and listen either on the station's Facebook page, YouTube channel, or my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I. And that's Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile. And yes, we do stream live to Rumble. So many ways to watch, many ways to listen. And of course, you can listen to the station on the TuneIn app like thousands of other radio stations do. We stream 24/7 to the TuneIn app. And I love that feature because it means you can take us anywhere on your devices and in and out of the car, and that's a great feature. And you can tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she'll do that, no questions asked. A reminder that this show is turned into a podcast, so that means you can subscribe and get it sent to you when new shows drop, and you can do that on wherever you get your podcasts, right? Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Play, etc. You know the drill on that stuff. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Before this is obviously these ongoing stories that are happening here, but today is actually, the funerals. The first of the 15 funerals will start on the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia and Sydney. So this is going to be several days of emotions and very sad, holiday season. These poor families are laying their loved ones to rest over this horrific encounter. And the stories are coming out, right? The elderly couple there in their 60s that tried to intervene and they were killed. I'm watching the story and listening to this, and what say you in this? I'm kind of dumbfounded of the response time that these two POSs were able to fire for 10 minutes uninterrupted, with the exception, of course, civilians who were throwing bricks at them. And of course, the one hero who disarmed the father, who snuck up on the back, grabbed him, choked him out, got the weapon away from him. He was shot a couple times, but he's recovering. Police eventually did kill the father, but 10 minutes. Can you even imagine the horror of being in that vicinity? I saw some footage of just a person living in their apartment, but overseeing the scene. And she did record on her phone her view, and of course you hear her, and that's her multiple floors up with relatively safety in her balcony in an apartment, versus the people who are unarmed and on the beach and on the walkway and in the parking lot in that whole area. I'm sure you've seen the footage of the area now, so you have an idea what I'm talking about. And no help is coming, and nobody's firing at them. But Australia, much like London or England, have jumped on this bandwagon and are totally anti-gun. But of course, whenever a government cracks down on civilians having access to guns, it's only the law-abiding people that follow the law, right? So we understand that. I don't know. We've got to talk about this every time when the stupidity of we need tougher gun control. Look at Massachusetts. Our gun control is really, matter of fact, the gun laws in Massachusetts have actually crossed the line into unconstitutional. Well, Joe, then how does that happen? Because you've got to sue, Maura Healey. You've got to sue the government to get the court to hear the case and say, wow, that you really just trampled on the Second Amendment and the Constitution there. And that takes an incredible amount of money. So yeah, our constitutional rights, our Second Amendment rights, as well as our First Amendment rights for that matter, are trampled on all the time. Because often you got to sue to this. So this is why when I hear criticism thrown at Trump or South Park, which has some hysterical stuff, will say, well, I'm going to sue you when Trump does that. Why is that stupid? Because that's the remedy that our society has, is to argue your points and make your arguments in front of a judge or a panel of judges and get it rectified or get justice. That's how our system works. And I would rather people saying, I'm going to sue you or I'll see you in court about that, than taking matters into their own hands, which of course would be chaos if that was to happen. So this situation on Bondi Beach, not good. Let me see. Sorry, my screen just temporarily went out. We'll fix this in a second. But the Bondi Beach situation, the funerals are starting today. And one of the things about that I saw in one of the articles, them talking about the father legally owned these guns. And so your first reaction is, are you kidding me? How can he legally own guns? And it's a little representation there, because he's had a club, right? So they issue a couple different licenses, and one of them is for hunting and fishing and stuff. And there we go. I'm sorry. I lost my screen for a second, folks. And the thing about that is, okay, in Massachusetts issues different types of gun laws too, right? We used to call it for protection of life and property. Now they deem it for all lawful purposes. But you can also be issued what they call a target license. And that'll let you carry your weapons to and from, say, a gun club. And then the third is antique or collector type, okay? So this guy, since 2015, has been issued a gun club license, which means that he's allowed to have long rifles. So the fact that, yes, he had long rifles, but he had pistols, that now they're checking into that, because he shouldn't have that based on that license. So when you see that headline about, well, yeah, he's legally owns those guns, which is a great talking point for certain political people, right? Well, we got to take the guns away from the people who own them legally. What he was issued, right, is a gun club license. Now, this is the father who was killed at the scene during the shootout, and he was part of a gun club. And he held what they call a recreational hunting license for just over 10 years, right, since 2015. And he met the eligibility criteria for a firearms license, according to the South Wales Police Commissioner. But for that, to take rifles to and from the gun club, not to carry them, and that goes in Massachusetts. If your license is for that, what we call target, then if you are stopped and you have guns on you, the burden of proof that you're either on your way to or you're on your way home from your gun club or a range falls on you, because you're not supposed to be able to, you're not carrying that for protection of you and others. You can't take it to Walmart. You can't have it when you go to the bank and out to the store or going to work. That's the way it is. So he legally owned long rifles or long guns rifles, but he did not have a license, as far as we can find out so far, for pistols. And he certainly wasn't authorized to be on the beach with it, much less shooting people. So the firearms license was to be for recreational hunting. And there are the two types of hunting licenses that they issued there, right? The ability to hunt on a property, or also part of the hunting club or a gun club. He was a member of a gun club, so he's entitled, by the nature of the Firearms Act, to have a firearms license issued. Sajid, that's his name, S-A-J-I-D, Sajid, has had that since 2015, so he could have the long arms that he had. And they had any of them registered, but not the pistols. So they are working on the background of both of these, the father and son. And Australia cracked down on firearms big time following the 1996 mass shooting in Port Arthur, if you remember that, in Tasmania. And that left 35 dead, 24 wounded. And semi-automatic rifles were banned in the country, well, banned just throughout the country, and very strict registration on purchasing for all weapons were enacted. So the fact that, you see this headline, he illegally owned them, you got to drill down in that a little bit. I think that headline's a little misleading because he didn't legally own every weapon he had at the scene. And yeah, for 10 years, he was a member of a gun club. Now, I'm all for asking the vetting process and the background process, how well is that? But this was a bloody massacre. It left victims, most believed here to be Jewish, ranging in age from 10 to 87. And, of course, this is reverberating throughout the country because whenever something like this happens, because of the nature of what happens, the target and who was targeted, it does bring into what's going to, it's not the location, is it? It's the people, the perpetrators versus the victims. But we have to head here to our first break on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 10 seconds, folks. Stick with us.
Are you looking for a holistic approach to your health? One that supports your body's natural ability to regulate, adapt, regenerate, and heal? Look no further. The Bioregulatory Medicine Institute, BRMI, a nonprofit global organization dedicated to advancing the science and art of bioregulatory medicine, welcomes you to their free and rich library of resources. You'll find articles, podcasts, videos, and more at brmi.online. BRMI believes health freedom is a basic human right, honoring medical ethics and the innate intelligence of the human body. When your body is properly supported, it will thrive. If you're looking for the root cause of illness, physical, emotional, or spiritual, visit brmi.online. brmi.online.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eddie Arus from the Vascular Care Group with offices in Worcester and Sturbridge. I meet patients every week who tell me they've stopped doing the things they love: walking with friends, standing at their grandchild's soccer game, even going on vacation, all because of painful varicose veins, swelling, or fatigue in their legs. Now picture this: the same patients a few weeks after treatment, walking comfortably, smiling more, planning their next trip. That transformation is what drives me. We offer safe, minimally invasive outpatient treatments that get you back to life quickly. No overnight stay, no long downtime, just compassionate care and results that last. Because life's too short to sit on the sidelines when you could be living it fully. If vein problems are holding you back, let's change your story together. Call the Vascular Care Group or visit thevascularcaregroup.com to schedule your consultation. I'm Dr. Eddie Arus, and your next chapter starts with healthy legs.
All right, folks, welcome back here. Second segment on the Wednesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. And of course, you can join the conversation for the time we have left together at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. So I'm going to switch gears to obviously the situation at Brown University, because we're 4 days into this, and the suspect is still at large. Again, was walking into the studio, and unless something happened in the last like 15, 20 minutes. But this is crazy because I saw an update. This campus actually has 1,200 cameras. 1,200 cameras. Yet, in this engineering building, the old part of the engineering building, and that's going to mean something in a second, they have a complete dead zone as far as camera footage. So you have an older building, and they put a new addition. And when I say new, I mean like 5 years. We're not talking months. 5 years ago, they put on the front the newer building. And the stupidity that came out of this really poorly done press conference in a row, we've had poorly done press conferences a few days in a row. And Mayor Smiley and the president of Brown, they're trying to explain, well, this is an older part of the building. There's cameras in the newer part, and that makes absolutely no sense. What the hell does that got to do with anything? We're not talking buildings from the 700s, right? This is just an older building, but it has electricity, right? It has plumbing, windows, doorways. What is the age of the building? I don't care if it's 100 years, 150 years old. What the hell does that get to do with a university with several hundred millions of dollars in endowment, with 1,200 cameras surrounded around the campus, but you have no cameras because that part of the building or the engineering department is old? That's just stupid. That's a stupid answer. It makes no sense whatsoever. And to even say that with a straight face, that really says more about you than anything else. And to the students and to the parents of these students, people who are footing the bill for Brown, I would have some serious questions about the lack of common sense and security being shown here at Brown. And I would not be surprised if we saw some suits or even class action suits for not keeping their students safe out of pure, absolute derelict of duty on this. But we'll get into this a little more. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Mark's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
What I say is that, that whole area where the shooting took place at Brown University, that's a class action lawsuit, and I make that plural, just waiting to happen. And they're going to start rolling in. But it's good that they got a $5 billion endowment, because they'll be able to maybe settle these all these patients out of court. You know what I mean? You know?
Yeah.
Now, this guy, this new perp they got now, or this new person of interest after they dropped the first one. Now the second one, right? They got him on. He's been on the lam for what, 72 hours at least, going on. You said 4 days, almost, right? We're past.
Well, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right?
Yeah, we're past 72 hours. They don't know where the guy is. The guy's on a lam, and now all of a sudden these security cam tapes are picking up, and I guess they're being posted by people who lived in the neighborhood. That's a wealthy neighborhood where he was walking around. Do you know that part of Providence? Yeah.
Yeah, that whole area right to the southeast of Brown.
Yeah, that's the high rent district of And the people who live in high rent districts, I hate to tell you, they got security cams. They got them all over their houses. They got them inside their houses. They have them in the rings around their doorbells. They're everywhere. And this guy pops up like there's 3 new photos will come in, and they're all lousy. They're all poor quality. And this guy is 5'8". He weighs 250 pounds if he weighs a nickel, right? And he waddles like a duck. Okay, you see him on the video. And he's been on a land. Where's he hiding? Under a manhole cover? How do you hide a guy that's 5'8", weighs 250 pounds, and waddles like a duck? Where do you hide him? Got to be under a manhole cover.
Yeah. This has been a very, very poorly conducted investigation.
You know what it is? In my humble opinion, it looks to me it's like a clown show.
Yeah.
The whole thing from top to bottom. A clown show.
The press conferences are really, it's just, oh my goodness. They really need to get, bring somebody in from the Washington FBI Bureau or something who has experience in this. At least don't, they're just eroding the confidence in the entire investigation by, Mark, I'm going to use your word, by the clown show that they're putting up there. Final word, Mark? All right, he must have dropped. Let him hang up. All right, thank you, Mark, for the call. I appreciate it. Here's the thing. Yeah, to Mark's point, yeah, it doesn't instill a lot of confidence watching that press conference and looking at that, because remember the first conference, they were actually showing video of right before the incident, but they were saying it was the day before that they pulled this. And to the point about, yes, if you look, that is a nice area, nice neighborhood. One of my old business partners got his PhD in economics from Brown, so I've spent some time visiting him down there in that neighborhood, and you can just tell. I mean, look at the houses in the background of this. And to Mark's point, those homes typically have, at minimum, security ring doorbells type of thing, but flooded. And it seems like the videos that we are getting and retracing the suspect's route is coming from private cameras, private security cameras in the neighborhood. And again, not really a lot from Brown. And that's mind-boggling to me. 1,200 cameras, and no one thought, well, let's put some up in the building, the houses and engineering. And this stupidity about the age of the building, stop saying that. You sound like a complete idiot saying something like that. The age of the building has nothing to do with your ability to put a couple screws up in the corner of the hallway and stick a camera there. I mean, the building is a functioning building, right? It has plumbing, it has electricity. You can put cameras in it. So that's just absolutely ridiculous. And then the response here about with the president, because there's a couple things. One was the claims about some witnesses talking about the gunman shouted. And guess what? What are the witnesses saying? And they're not talking about, not only are they not saying this at the press conference, and you ask why, but when asked about it, they totally avoided it. So multiple witnesses have claimed the gunman shouted Allah Akbar. We know this term, right? God is great. And Allah Akbar, and who yells that? Now, if you have, as Mark says, this 250-pound, 5'8", waddling around, and they're yelling Allahu Akbar while shooting and murdering a couple of students, that seems pretty significant to me. It seems like something that should be part of the overall description of the suspect and what happened. And I'm looking at an article posted at Town Hall, and it reports that amid continuing public confusion following this shooting, these witnesses are saying this, and he would yell or loudly say Allahu Akbar before opening fire. And officials won't publicly confirm that. And when a reporter pushed on that, did they say anything? Now, the reporter knows exactly what the witness was saying, but he's trying to give them an opportunity to do it, and they're not doing it. And so you've got Ella Cook, a 19-year-old, and Mohammad Aziz Yunakov, the 18-year-old. Those are the students that were killed during that attack in the engineering building. And the suspect remains at large. And I said this the other day that, they held this person of interest. And that brought active investigation either to a halt or at least slowed right down. Because they had to basically restart the investigation when this person, whatever they did, alibied out, or they were able to figure out, no, this isn't the person. And this colonel who gets up there and he's talking about all this, and it can go in different directions and so forth. Look, it does take time. I've talked about when we talk about these things and cases, I say this all the time. There is so much going on that we don't realize, meaning man hours and people scouring through hours and hours of video footage, doorbell footage, right, from the doorbell and the security cameras. But I'm also looking at the lack of questions from some of the reporters. Now, I don't claim that I watched every second of this, but I don't recall or seen anything about reporters or them offering to say, a reporter saying, what about key card swipes? Do students, I don't know this, I can't find it in any articles. Do students need an ID to get into any of these buildings? Are they wide open to the public to just walk in? Can you track students through this? What about the cell phone data mining, right? We've all become a little bit familiar with this because that's how they went after January 6 people. That's how the FBI got closed in on the January 5th pipe bomber, by using cell phone data and mining that data. But folks, we have to take the mid-show break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Also our text line at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. And we'll take a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Meet me on the other side, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Vicki Graff, and here's your latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. After a comfortable afternoon, we're going to cool off into the 20s overnight tonight. For your Thursday, expect to see a mix of sun and clouds, and it's going to be even warmer with mid to upper 40s. Friday will be even warmer. It comes with temperatures in the 50s, but it's also our next impact weather storm with rain and wind heading our way. We're back to sunshine and cooler temperatures for Saturday. I'm Vicki Graff, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Celebrate the season at Winter in Wooville. Lights, music, Santa's Workshop, Christmas Tree Village, and more at Polar Park this December. Get your tickets now at polarpark.com/Wooville.
WCRN Radio is thrilled to bring back a legendary voice, and now you can help tell the stories. Paul Harvey captivated millions with his unique style and unmistakable voice. By sponsoring the rest of the story, your brand can become a part of this rich tradition, and it links your business with a program that people love and trust. So don't miss this unique opportunity to grow your business while becoming part of something truly special. For sponsorship details, just go to WCRNradio.com.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Of course, our text line at 617-297-8388. And texter 320 actually text in, and we'll share this because there's something in here which I don't know, or I didn't know. If it's, you can chime in, but I didn't know there was a vote of no confidence with this chief. So the texter says, this is the most inept group of people I've ever seen. Ditto, I agree with that. It's pretty bad. And why isn't the chief from Brown University Police Force at this press conference? And according to the texter, it's because he shouldn't even be in that position. His entire force has voted a no confidence vote on him on two different occasions. And there's a lot of misinformation. Yeah, tons of misinformation and lack of information in this. The texter says there is a lot of information that we are not being told. Finally, why is the mayor so involved in the press conference? Smiley. Law enforcement should be handling this press conference as at some point the governor and mayor can do their own. I agree with like 99% of that. They do seem inept, which doesn't do a lot to instill a lot of confidence in the investigation. But I'm sure there's a lot of great officers and special agents and so forth who aren't in front of the camera who are doing their jobs. But they just seemed ill-prepared. And I didn't know this about the vote of no confidence for the Brown chief of police. And maybe, obviously, there's a lot more to that. Today's not the day to look into that, but I would love to go back and find out what the backstory is on that. And yeah, Mayor Smiley isn't doing anything, I think, for his imaging either. He just seems like that dorky, touchy-feely type of, and so is the president of Brown. Seem to be more concerned, and don't get me wrong, feelings and getting counseling and all that is very important. But the press conference, and that's the other point before we go to the call, when the Attorney General of Rhode Island is trying to tell everyone that there is no concern for danger and nothing. And even Smiley said, well, after the shooting, there's been no other evidence of any problems or danger. Well, there wasn't before the shooting either. But how can you come out and say everything's fine, you don't have to worry about anything? Well, the murderer, the gunman, who is clearly armed and dangerous, is still at large. That's a pretty bold statement. It's one thing if you've got the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator in custody, then you can say, hey, things are okay, right? To say everything's fine now that he's killed two, that's his quarter, don't worry about it. That's just very, very stupid to say. So to say that everything's fine and there's no other threat, how can you say that? And the other thing that the Attorney General said definitively is this is not politically motivated. Again, how can you be so sure of that? If you don't have the person in custody, if you haven't interviewed them, if there's no manifesto, if there's no social media, you have no idea. So that's just you're straight up lying to us, trying to put people at ease, which I understand. You don't want to cause panic and unnecessary stress, but you got to be honest. We don't know what the motivation. And if you combine that with the eyewitnesses who are telling us that he's saying Allahu Akbar before firing, well, that lends credibility to some, political leaning and standard and motivation. So this press conference is absolutely ridiculous to tell us nothing to worry about. There is absolutely no indicators of any more danger. You shouldn't be afraid of anything. A multi-murderer who's still armed has evaded capture. So you can't say that. And to try to tell us that this is not, and he said it definitively, this is not politically motivated. You can't know that. What makes you say that other than playing politics yourself? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Ken, waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what's up? What say you? Ken? Did we lose him?
Nope.
Do I got you, Ken?
Ken.
I'm trying.
Oh, there you are. I got you.
Okay, good. I only caught the last 2 minutes of the first half hour. Joe
Okay.
said, listeners, buckle up. Have you seen the picture of the killer?
Yeah. Well, I've seen the video that they've released from
No.
private security
I'm talking about
cameras.
his face.
No, not really. I haven't. Why? Is there one out there?
Oh, yeah. Initials
Okay.
MK. And yes, he has a manifesto. And he has a professor that he's lying to that's right up his alley. He shot her multiple times. You get the picture?
Yeah.
He's connected with Turtle Island group. You know, the one that was planning the New Year's Eve at the...
Yeah. I started to hear this Turtle Island group. What's the backstory on them?
Turtle Island basically are the people that believe we are the colonists who destroyed the America, and we have to be destroyed ourselves. That's an extreme leftist, Marxist, Islamist, all that, and they're very militant. He's a Palestinian that came from Lebanon. He's an anthropology student with the pronouns they, he. I don't know what the heck that means. And if you want to find out all the details of what's going on, go to the Daily Signal, Tony Kinnett, Kinnett. He lays it all out. You know what the university did yesterday? They whitewashed his whole profile on there because he was high profile at Brown. They loved him. And then
Right, because actually I was going to get into this because there's questions about this scrubbing the web pages.
yes.
And I was going to get into that because I saw that on there. And again, Ken, the Brown University president's like, I don't know anything about that.
They're lying. They're all lying.
How do you not know what's going on at university? Your university, you're the president of. You don't know about your own website pages?
They knew within 10 minutes who it was. That's why they've been lying and perverting and doing everything they can to block, because they know the university's going down if the truth comes out. So they're going to protect him any way they can.
So this Kenneth or whoever is saying that it's an anthropology student, Palestinian, LGBTQ activist, Palestinian refugee.
Yep.
Karbach or something like that.
Yep. Last name. Yep.
And he was suddenly removed. I mean, so, at this point, I'm sorry if they've actively hindering this. Now, if there's a line between not putting out into the public while you do your investigation, and then, if you cross the line and you're actually hiding evidence and hindering the investigation, somebody needs to be criminally held responsible for that.
Sounds like
you don't get to do that without. Well, you shouldn't be able to do that without consequence.
And it tells you they'll go to those ends. Why? Because they have to protect the university who's created this monster.
A lot of this always comes back, doesn't it seem, to vetting of everybody. And I'm not talking about immigrants coming in, students, right? And this, Marco Rubio has said this on multiple times when reporters have tried to challenge him on this. Even in the congressional hearing, when members of Congress literally have no idea that entering the country is actually a crime, right? You've got the brilliant minds in Congress saying, well, it's not illegal to enter illegally. And Tom Homan's head almost explodes every time they say something so stupid. And Rubio has pointed this out, that, and I forget the who's that very liberal, and I forget what country she's from, that was drilling Rubio about this and saying, oh, you get to decide. And Rubio's like, well, the law says that the Secretary of State, and I happen to be the Secretary of State right now, so yes, I do get to decide if somebody is going against our interests, if they lied about their intentions on the visa application, And then they go on to be these agitators, and they say things that we wouldn't have let them in if they were honest about. Yeah, I get to revoke their status. And so a lot of this stuff comes back to vetting. And because you want to go to a university in the United States, that does not equate to you get the right to go to university. We should have the ability to say, you are a stirrer in your country. You have every intention of being a crap stirrer here. We don't need it. In these universities, I'm sorry, I don't care if you want the enrollment. You've got billions of dollars of endowment. That's not our concern. Our concern is the safety of American citizens. So what is mainstream media? I have not seen this turtle group, but I've seen it on some other things mentioned, but really not like ABC or CBS, Ken.
You're not going to get it from them. Who are you kidding, Joe? They're never going to investigate that. Never, ever. That's the reality.
So this student's, just so listeners are catching up here, they removed the student's profile during this active manhunt.
Oh, yes.
And it's a queer Palestinian activist focused on Middle East studies. In this student that they scrubbed his presence on their website, on their pages, has the same physical build.
Bingo. That
matches the suspect.
Oh, and you remember Take 6, Joe? Where they have it figured out, and it's the girl. Guess what? They have him figured out at the same percentage, like 98%. Yep. Because they do have him protesting, and they have his stride, and they match it up to what they have on the street. Just on Saturday, boom, match.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
As a side note, a person's gait is something used in investigations all the time. It's a very common thing. I've made reference to, I couldn't even count how many times, especially when I'm doing like a workman's comp case or fraud case, and you're describing surveillance, you're saying in your reports, literally, this is the nature of their gait, especially like if it's a workman's comp, you know what I mean? Because, if their gait is perfectly fine, it matches them before, that tells you, well, maybe they don't have the injuries they're claiming they have. So, and not only that, our software that we've used for facial recognition, which we've had for decades now, is that sophisticated. I've talked about this in unrelated stories before. I mean, China's surveillance programs are so far advanced, they can actually look at somebody in the way they walk. Ken, final thought real quick, because we're against the clock. Well, we're done. All right, we're going to take the third and final break. Thank you, Ken, for the call. Appreciate it. I'll back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds, folks.
Perner Logging and Land Clearing, fully equipped with state-of-the-art equipment to handle all of your lot and land clearing needs, whether it's 1 acre or 100. They regularly service customers in the local area and will travel to neighboring communities and beyond to get the job done. Now, whether you're doing new construction, renovations, or clearing land for a new development, the Perner Logging and Land Clearing team of experienced personnel makes small or large jobs run efficiently, giving them the ability to always keep the competitive edge. They'll quote your job from something small to hundreds of acres, factoring in all aspects, including the wood salvage value, if any. In addition, they have the right equipment for each size job, making for the most efficient job site possible. For every job, Perner Logging and Land Clearing makes sure the client's goals are the main objective. Call Perner Logging and Land Clearing today for a free estimate, 978-270-9916. That's 978-270-9916.
Junk piling up, garage bursting at the seams. It's time to call in the mighty at Mighty Movers. They don't just move, they remove. Their junk removal and clean out services are the fastest, easiest way to reclaim your space without lifting a finger. Whether it's yard waste, old furniture, garage cleanouts, or even hoarder cleanup, they've got the muscle and the mission to get it done safely and affordably. Selling your home or just tired of the clutter? They do offer full property cleanouts, demolition, and furniture delivery too. One call clears it all. Proudly serving Marlborough, Boston, Worcester, Framingham, and beyond. They're Central Mass's cleanup crew with a can-do attitude. Call 978-793-6165 or visit mightymoversma.com. mightymoversma.com. Mighty Movers, they bring the might so you don't have to lift a thing. All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central. 617-297-8388. If you'd like to text the show, that's 617-297-8388. Or, of course, you can call and join the conversation at 508-871-7000 for the time that we have remaining here together. And to Ken's point on this removing this suspect, this is so wrong what's going on here. And their spin on it is Brown urged restraint from harmful doxing. And the AG said naming people is a dangerous game. Fair point. Absolutely it is. But scrubbing pages mid-investigation while refusing to address why you're doing that creates this vacuum. And vacuums mean rumors and people fill in their own blanks. It's not a healthy thing for the entire image of the university, the image of the law enforcement and attorney general's office. It's just not a good practice. Authorities asked for public to help identify the suspect, yet exploded rather when the reporters asked about this Kabashi guy. And why were they scrubbed? Why were they removed? All right, and they say, hey, it's not unusual to take steps to protect individual safety online. True. Then why aren't you being upfront about that in the press conference and saying we've taken some pages down because we're looking into just be upfront about this. But the timing, right? These pages vanishing days after the shooting, while the viral speculation is just taking off, it raises questions. Was this precautionary, reactive, to avoid linking a campus activist to a potential motive? To Ken's point, they're trying to protect Brown. Look at, you've got 2 students dead, others injured, your reputation suffering. So do what's right to put this person in custody. Is that why they're so confident in saying, hey, there's no more danger because they've got eyes on this person? Maybe even have them in custody and haven't told us. I don't know. But during an era of polarized campuses that we've been seeing here, especially, the 2024 pro-Palestinian protests that have happened, and don't even get me on this, the LGBTQ Palestinian thing. That's just the biggest oxymoron in the world. But anyway, put a pin in that. Just these sudden erasures without explanation feed narratives of bias and cover-ups. When we compared that to past incidences where universities were accused of shielding the activists, transparency could have de-escalated a lot of tension. Now, they're trying to emphasize that this Kabosh guy is not a suspect. And they're saying no manifesto, motive, or link confirmed. Now, Ken's telling us that there is this, but they're not letting it out. But see, this mishandled response ensures the story lingers, distracting from the real victims and the real manhunt, which goes back to my earlier point. You can't come out here with such confidence and arrogance and say, there's no indication, there's no more red flags, everything's fine, and this isn't politically motivated at all. All the evidence is to the contrary of that. Simple rule, in high-stakes situations, I don't know without follow-up is kind of toxic. Provide context. Pages have been removed for privacy amid threats. Right? Take care of that. It looks bad when the reporter is saying, why did you remove this student's presence on your university computers and on the pages. It's not clarifying any of this. The fiasco shows how poor handling turns a footnote into the headline. So again, poorly handled. This will all fall out. I didn't get really a chance. We're against the clock here. We only have a few minutes, but this foiled Los Angeles bomb plot, we made a little bit of reference to it. Didn't really cover it. The news has been so fast in volume, right, that we haven't really been able to touch on a lot of this stuff. But Monday, the FBI and DOJ foiled this massive, horrific New Year's Eve terror plot that was going to take place in Southern California. And this is the reference. I mean, it was 4 members of, again, this Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF, which is a far-left, anti-government, anti-capitalist group with strong pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel rhetoric. Where have I heard that before? So they were arrested. They were planning a coordinated pipe bomb attack, or attacks, I should say, multiple U.S. company sites. In their words, logistic centers. And marketing targets with Hamas triangles, Free Palestinian stickers. The group had recently protested an Israeli defense firm, El Beit Systems, and targeted a Los Angeles synagogue event. And as of Tuesday and today, prominent California Democrats, including Newsom and Padilla and Schiff and Karen Bass and numerous House reps, have issued no public statements despite requests for comments about this situation. In a state where the Democrats dominate, top California Democrats have gone absolutely radio silent on this foiled domestic terror plot tied to a radical anti-Israel extremist group. No condemnations, no praise for law enforcement. Crickets, play the crickets. This is an oversight. It's a pattern when the perpetrators align with left or far left causes, I should say. And TLF's rhetoric blends pro-Palestinian activism with calls for violence, right? Free Palestine. We've talked for the last year or so, all since these protests, ever since October 7th of last year with the Hamas attack on Israel. We've talked about the fact that you hear them chanting, these activists, in air quotes, guys, from the river to the sea. And then yet they don't even understand what that means. It's just a slogan they heard and they're told to repeat. And they just, amazing that they don't even comprehend. They're cheering on genocide. So this rhetoric with this pro-Palestinian activism calls for free Palestine, these materials at the bomb sites, protest against Israeli companies, the disruption of synagogues. They mark targets, and they're going to have the Hamas symbols on American soil, guys. It's not random, man, okay? It had clear ideological motives linking to anti-Israel extremists. And now, if this alleged perpetrator is Brown, is part of the same turtle group here, I think we need to acknowledge that there's something happening in this country, on our soil. If you're not connecting all of these incidences scattered throughout the country. And my question is still goes back to the politicians and the law enforcement. And I look at Trump winning in 24 and now president, thank God, because he's put Pam Bondi, he's put Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Even Janine Pirro as U.S. Attorney in D.C. People who aren't afraid to do what they take their oath to do. People who aren't afraid to prosecute, to investigate, and they're not worried about political careers or being canceled or not being invited to the fundraiser or Conan O'Brien's Christmas party, for that matter. Because we have a serious problem. I'm going to run out of time in a few seconds, but there are some more, a little more information about Nick Reiner. Again, I talked a little bit about the fact that he wasn't medically cleared, and it seems like they're setting this up for mental incapacity, for being held legally responsible type of thing. But he certainly had a wherewithal to hire some of the best attorneys that money can buy. So we'll take an opportunity tomorrow. I was looking to maybe do a little bit of a end of the year type thing. We'll look back at the past year from including, unfortunately, the bad things that have happened, bombs, attacks. We had a lot of violence on public transportation in 2025, but we did have President Trump sworn in at least and changed the direction of the country in a lot of ways. So maybe tomorrow we'll spend a little time with just a year end and look back over the past year. And of course, we've got cases like this. But I'm very concerned about this. I mean, I don't think we had decades and years of U.S. attorneys and prosecutors and attorney generals and DAs that have been installed in these positions with, we know it, we face it, with a lot of the money that is funneled through like the George Soros organizations and money on the left. And that has changed how these DAs and attorney generals are doing their job, because they're getting these people who don't believe in actually enforcing the laws that they're sworn to do. But we'll put a pin in that for now. We got to wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Thank you for joining me. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. And remember, the show's turned into a podcast, so check it out wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Play, any of those locations. Go to joemangishow.com and follow me on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, X, Facebook. And don't forget, you can get this show and all shows at the website or Facebook page for that matter. All right, folks, have a great rest of the day. Joe out.